Hey, welcome back everybody, and thanks for checking out this edition of Dan's Toy Box, brought to you by GeekosityMag.com. Today we're going to bust open the toy box and take a look at the DC Essentials Knightfall Batman. Now, I waited a while to pull the trigger on this figure because I was unsure of whether or not I really wanted it. But he's here now, he's freed from his packaging, so let's take a good look at the Dark Knight. Now, I've been a huge Batman fan for many years, and I was enthralled by the Knightfall storyline in the early 90s. I never would have thought that Batman would meet his match until Bane. This figure is based on the characters he appeared in this storyline. And right off the bat, we learn that this Batman comes with multiple different pairs of Oh, right. DC Essentials doesn't put accessories with their figures. I don't understand what the point of that is, and that in and of itself is very disappointing because, let's face it, this figure looks fantastic and would be even better if he had batarangs or multiple pairs of hands or a grappling hook or a bat rope. But hey, at this point, it is what it is. And as much as I like the DC Essentials line, I really don't know if I'm going to actually add any more to my collection. I have not yet seen a DC Essential figure with any accessories to it. And in my opinion, accessories really help to enhance the figure. But you know what? You might disagree, and you might be perfectly happy with a figure that just comes as is with no additional pieces to it. And that is what makes doing these reviews so cool. Because you can put in your 2 cents at the bottom, and we can either agree to disagree, or we can be in accordance with one another. It makes for great discussions, and that's what makes this hobby so much fun. I will say that the DC Essentials figures that I have seen all look amazing, and this one is definitely no exception. The blue on his mask and on his cape and his gauntlets, boots, the whole 9 yards is such a rich tone and really reminiscent and evocative of Batman's costume in the late 80s, early 90s. His utility belt is this gorgeous yellow, and the oval and bat on his chest look phenomenal. There's no bleed through. The bat himself is really exceptionally done. I just cannot get over how nice that looks and how clean it was applied to the figure. My only real concern though is the fact that when you look at the paint scheme on his upper thighs here, instead of being sculpted, it's just painted on, and the lines really are kind of sloppy in my opinion. That really, to me, just detracts from the overall look of the figure. And zoom in here a little bit better so you can get kind of a better look at what that paint scheme looks like. And you can see how the line work just is a little bit off. I don't know, that's lazy, I guess. I think if they had actually sculpted it in and then done the painting, maybe it would have given it a better look. I mean, otherwise, they could have even just left it off and made the tops of his legs gray, but I know the look they were going for, and unfortunately, this just really doesn't cut it. Also, looking at his cowl, at a close-up of the blue around the mouth and face, it's fairly clean. I mean, there is a little bit of splotchiness, but, you know, nothing too terrible. I am very happy with how clean the whites of his eyes turned out in the cowl, and you know, you can really get a nice feel for the sculpting and the lines in this figure and just how much it looks like Batman stepped off the comic book page. All things considered, in terms of his overall appearance, this is a very well done Batman. The cape is molded, but it's fairly soft. I mean, it's somewhat flexible, but as you'll see when we begin to pose it around, it inhibits the movement. Not terribly, but it definitely doesn't help with the shoulders and arms. The same with the belt rather. For being as sculpted as nicely as it is, it definitely prohibits his waist movement. And as long as we're talking about movement, may as well get into the articulation on this figure. His head does not look up very much more than that. It will not look down at all. It does turn side to side, and there's a little bit of attitude, but not much. The shoulders will only come out that far thanks to the cape. The shoulders do offer a 360 rotation, but the cape will block it, so you're not going to get the arm really much past that. He does have the upper bicep swivel and cut. He's got double jointed elbows, which will bend that far in, and his wrists hinge and pivot nicely. He's got a diaphragm crunch, which tilts forward that far and back that far. Not the greatest, and you can see the cape will hinder it because it bumps into the back of his legs. And you can kind of see here, they do kind of stop the sculpting just below the diaphragm cut line, so his abs don't go all the way up. As I said, he has a waist swivel. You can see mine is very, very difficult to move. The belt, to me, hinders it some. His legs will do very, very good splits. It gets him into some great poses for kicking. He's got an upper thigh cut that works very well. His legs will kick forward that far. They will kick back that far. He's got double jointed knees that bend in that far. He's got an upper boot cut, which it works, but it looks weird. And he's got a ball jointed ankle that will move forward that far, move back this far, and does pivot. He also has some really cool tread on the boots. I was impressed with that. So overall for articulation, I mean, he's good, but not great. You can get some really cool poses with him, but perhaps I'm a little bit spoiled by Marvel Legends, where it feels like the degree of motion is much greater. I mean, either way though, it'll do what you want it to do. It'll look fairly decent doing it. The inflexible cape does kind of make some of the posing look a little awkward. You know, when you see figures like the Mafex Hush Batman with that ridiculously huge cloth cape, which I do eventually want to get. You know, when you see figures like that with the cloth capes that have the bendy wires in them, I think as beautiful as these sculpted capes are, it would be nice to see figures like Batman, Superman, and really any caped figures with more posable capes. It just allows for a greater dynamic when it comes to posing your figures for pictures. You know, if you're into articulated comic book art and you want to make some really badass poses, it'd be kind of nice to not have a cape that hinders the look. Looking at this figure as well, in the DC Essentials line, they made a Knightfall Catwoman, you know, based on the artwork from I believe it was Jim Balent doing the Catwoman books at the time. But oddly enough, there is no Bane. Now, I don't really intend to buy the Knightfall Catwoman. It's a nice figure, but it's not something that I want in my collection. But for a Knightfall Batman like this, it would really be awesome if DC Essentials would put out a good Bane figure. Hint, hint, if anybody from DC Essentials is watching this or happens to read my review of this over on geekositymag.com, work on a Bane figure! As far as this figure itself goes, I mentioned at the beginning that I had waited a while to pull the trigger on it. I mean, I'm a big Batman fan. I love the look of the figure. I wish he had accessories. I almost said more accessories. At this point, I'd even take one accessory. You know, he's nice to look at. The colors are crisp, they're clean. The detail on his eyes, on the bat, is spectacular. My real gripe with the paint, as I mentioned, was the way they did the trunks there on the upper thighs. But overall, you know, is this a figure that you need to run right out and get? No, not necessarily. I mean, he's great. He stands at the DC Essential 7¼ inches, 7.5 if you count the tips of the points on his cowl. At the price point of about $25, which is what I was able to find this for, it's definitely not a must-have addition to your toy box. It's affordable. It's nice to look at. If you're a big Batman fan, I would say don't pass it up if you have the opportunity to get one. But I really look at it as this is kind of a figure that, you know, you can take him or leave him. He looks good on the shelf with the rest, but he's not one that I would be disappointed had I not purchased. There are plenty of other Batman figures out there that are equally nice, some even better. But as far as this one is concerned, I mean, DC Essentials is turning out a fairly nice product. This is the direction DC is moving with their Essentials line. They could certainly improve it by adding accessories, giving us multiple hands, you know, working on some of the restrictive movements so that the figures actually have better articulation and more poseability. Overall, while I might not put him in the toy box, I'm certainly okay with him standing on it. Appreciate you guys stopping in to check out the video today. Please make sure to hit us up at geekositymag.com and check out our sister channel, Geekosity Mag. And as always, a big shout out to 42 Cut Productions for all of his great work in my logo and helping with the intro and a lot of the branding on my videos. Till next time, guys, geek out.